Hello, folks. John Cantera, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter here, and welcome to another episode of Stop the Scam. Today, we are going to be dealing with a Roadside Sentinel. And if you think that sounds odd, well, be glad you're not a scammer, because the scammers are going to fear these guys with a vengeance. Let's get started. Welcome to the Double Broker Bounty Hunters Stop the Scam. Here are your hosts, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, John Cantera, and Dispatch Caitlin Price. Another one bites the dust. I love starting our Monday with a little bit of Queen. And speaking of Queens, my favorite co-host in the world, Dispatch Kate. Kate, how you doing today?
Pretty good. I actually wanted to start off by following up from something from last week, Danielle's webinar that she did. It was fantastic. I joined it, hung out in the background, listened to it, got a lot of information from it. So anybody that's in the industry that wants to learn a little bit more, kind of on the back office side of things, that was well worth it. So props to Danielle.
Now, when you get the chance, Kate, put the link for the replay in the comment section. I'm sure people are going to want to check that out. And I'll be perfectly honest, I ended up missing that last week, and I am absolutely ashamed. And I'm so sorry, Danielle Spinelli at MCP. I am so sorry I missed that. But I definitely am going to be going back and checking that out. We do need to go ahead and give our sponsors a little bit of love. Let's go ahead and start off with our good friend Jimmy over at AccuBid Pro. Had to find
Tired of spending hours bidding on loads and second-guessing your profits? Introducing AccuBid Pro, the mobile app designed for the everyday owner-operator. We simplify load bidding, making it fast, accurate, and stress-free. Know your operating costs up front to ensure every load is profitable. Plus, for a limited time, enjoy a 30-day free trial. Stop guessing and start earning. Download AccuBid Pro today. Available now in the App Store. Bid better with AccuBid Pro.
We are also proud to announce that Freight Validate is now an official sponsor of Stop the Scam. We have been talking to regularly as a guest on our show, and we've been doing a lot of collaboration on fighting fraud, and he is now officially a sponsor, which is fantastic for us. And if you want to go and support our sponsors, please go to my website, vigilanttransport.com. Click on Stop the Scam podcast menu at the top of the screen, and you will see all of our sponsors. Our sponsors do have promotions for AccuBid Pro. There's a 30-day free use with a subscription. And with Freight Validate, if you are a corporate entity and you sign up with Freight Validate, you get 10 days free. So please check out our sponsors. And if you like the work we do, buy us a coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/stopthescampodcast. And you can donate to the work that Kate and I do in fighting fraud. We very much would appreciate it. In the meantime, I want to go ahead and start bringing up our guests. Today, we have GenLogs hanging out with us. We have Ryan Joyce and Justin Joyce coming on to tell us a little bit about their absolutely unique and powerful platform. And guys, thank you so much for joining the show. And Ryan, since you're CEO, they say rank has its privileges. You first. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
John, thanks for having me on the program here. It's a pleasure to be here. By the way, Danielle is a gem when it comes to fighting fraud. So definitely something worth checking out. And we're excited Dale's supporting you guys too, because, it's fighting fraud's a team sport, and Dale Prax has been one of the leading voices there. So I love what he's doing over at Freight Validate. So great to see them joining the stable. At GenLogs, we try to play our part as well. And we'll get into more of what we do here, but the bottom line is we call ourselves the truck intelligence platform. We use a ton of different data types, largely driven by a nationwide network of roadside cameras that we've set up along all major interstates, freight lanes, highways, to collect on what's actually happening on the roads. So we can compare a digital footprint of what is claimed against a physical footprint of what's actually happening and make sure those two match. So kind of like two-factor authentication for trucks in order to fight back against some of this fraud. As you may have noticed with the last names, Justin, so proud to be his brother, and he's leading the efforts that we have to go and engage with the public sector. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Go ahead, Justin. Now you're muted, by the way, Justin.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, great to be with you all. Thanks, John. Thanks, Kate. Great to be a part of the show here. Yes, as Ryan said, I am the younger brother, only brother, so I guess I'll take the award for his best brother. As he said, we're taking all those capabilities, our ability to understand carrier CMV level data, and we're providing those powerful tools over to law enforcement. So I think as we get through this. Through the program here, we'll be able to provide some instances and examples of how we're doing that to address fraud, cargo theft, and maybe also fun to provide a few other vignettes of how we're providing our information to address a myriad of other illicit activities like counter narcotics trafficking and others. So great to be with you all.
You know, I'm so wrapped up in freight fraud. I never thought about the possibilities of how you guys interact with different types of crime that exist out there. And I think law enforcement is probably loving the hell out of you guys right about now, at least certainly on the trucking side. Where in God's name did you guys get the idea to do what you do? This is amazing stuff. I'd love to hear the story.
Well, I'll share a little bit that, Justin and my story really harkens back to September 11th, where our father, who flew F-14 jets in the Navy, was actually in the Pentagon that morning, and his office was hit. And he narrowly made it out alive that day. Thank God saved him. However, it shook us up. I was a senior in high school at the time. Justin was getting ready to enter high school. And I think for both of us, it really charted a different course for our lives. We kind of both went to bed that night thinking, hey, we're going to do everything we could to make sure that never happened again. And fast forward a few years later, and I ended up studying Arabic and routing into the intelligence community, specifically serving at CIA. And then Justin went into the military, serving in the Army and Army intelligence, supporting combat operations in Afghanistan. And so we both have these unique backgrounds that you wouldn't think translates to what's happening in freight. And yet when we're fighting the global war on terror, we kind of had a three words that we would use to talk through terrorism. That was, you find the terrorists. Hey, where are they? You fix them. Hey, make sure we know exactly where they are so that we can get to this final option, finishing, which would be going in to arrest them before they would make an attack. And there's a little bit more to the interesting part in that finding piece. There's a lot of intelligence that went into it. So we had to know, where do these terrorists operate? What does it look like? How do we separate terrorist activity from your normal activity in a population? And so we would use sources. So my job was to recruit sources to tell us that information. But before we could validate what they were saying, or trust, I should say, what we say, we had to validate it. And we would do that through looking at what we were seeing on satellites, sensors, or hearing from other sources. And that provided an all source stream of saying, hey, you're telling me that you live in this area, you know this terrorist, you go to this mosque or whatever it might be, but I need to validate that through other sources so we know that we can trust you. When it came to now looking at what's happening in freight, and I was looking for what's the next thing that I want to focus on. And I just read an article about double brokering and freight fraud and all that was going on there. And I realized there were such clear parallels from our background that we wouldn't know these people. They would kind of come to us through a variety of different ways. We had to validate their information, validate their story. Similarly, if you post something on a load board, then all of a sudden you may have a carrier you've never dealt with before reach out and say, hey, I'll take that load. And all of a sudden you're back at that same place. You're kind of desperate for information to validate what they are saying. And you could drive that through sensor satellites or what you're hearing from other sources. So the parallels were pretty clear in terms of us entering into this space. And then that find and fix piece became really easy, that all of a sudden we could figure out who's actually a real carrier on the road and who's posing as a real carrier. And it's that finish piece. Like, what do you do with that information that I think a lot of us that are fighting fraud struggle with? And like John, you said, when you are trying to figure out, hey, what do you do when something gets stolen or where do you go? A lot of people do come to GenLogs these days. We realized that we could tell them exactly where a stolen load was. But without having that relationship with law enforcement, we didn't really have that final way that we could now finish the operation and recover that freight and put those bad guys, take them off the road. And so that's how this all came to be.
Fantastic. You know, I have spent the better part of the last 4 years. Damn allergies. Better part of the last 4 years engaged in fighting fraud as the double broker bounty hunter. Now, first we saw these double brokers skimming off the top, and then they started stealing the entire freight bill. And that's kind of how I got my name, was when they were skimming off the top. I was a dispatcher, and we would find these brokers. We knew who they were. We would intentionally book their cargo. And then when we booked their cargo, we picked up the load. As soon as we had the BOL, we're on the phone with the real broker saying, hey, we have your freight. It was double brokered. You know, we're happy to cut out the middleman. Let's do this. And we made $500-$600 a pop on every load in extra money. That first year we made over $100,000 in extra revenue. Of course, the scammers got wise to that, started stealing the entire freight bill, and then that was the end of it. Now it's not just about the freight bill. Now we are seeing a massive spike in strategic freight theft. And that is really where you guys excel in supporting the law enforcement community, the transportation community, and even the trucker who can't find his truck if the truck becomes stolen. I mean, God, it's amazing. It still blows my mind how practical and simple of a solution it is, but it's not entirely too simple. Now, if I understand correctly, you guys use an AI-driven process to scan images in order to be able to track it and provide details on each truck. Is that correct?
That's correct, John. We take about, we have hundreds of these sensors distributed all around the United States. And essentially what we're looking for is only when a truck passes by, we then capture a few images of that truck from the front, side, and rear. And then we run through our AI pipelines to extract all of the different data points that you'd want to know about a truck being at a time and place. Now, these are on the roads. We're just sitting there looking just like if you were driving by and jotting down the DOT on the side of any truck there. We're just doing the same at scale. And in fact, to date, we've done over 1 billion images that we've brought in that have all been processed. And the latency is just a handful of minutes, that when that truck passes by, to now have in our system a complete record of those 3 images, as well as all of the data taken out so that you can query and search and either find a missing asset or stolen asset, which is what we do all the time. Or if I could back it up to say, ideally, that doesn't get stolen in the first place. And we're trying to make sure that we are connecting, whether it's brokers or shippers, with reputable carriers. If we can get more freight into the good guys' hands, we can not have it go to the bad guys' hands.
You know, one of the big things that are going on, because Kate and I are both dispatchers. Kate's also a carrier. One of the things that we have a real difficult time dealing with is the fact that a lot of brokers in this industry require a roadside inspection in order to be able to book a load with them. And I've got a couple carriers that don't have one. I've even got a carrier who's been in business for over 20 years. He just hasn't had one in the last 2 years. So therefore, he's showing as no inspections, which is absolutely infuriating. But hey, it is what it is. You know, I would love to see brokers in this industry. And brokers, if you are listening, please listen closely. Compliance departments, etc. I would use GenLogs instead of trying to verify whether or not a carrier has an inspection to determine whether or not they have an asset. But that's just me, take that for what it's worth. Now, you guys, your AI is not only able to read what's on the side of the truck, but it also reads like license plates, doesn't it?
Yeah, it can read license plates. We're careful to do that in jurisdictions where we are able to do that, and we can pull that data in. But that's exactly it. John, if it helps, I'd love to show off a little bit of like, how does the magic happen if that works?
Oh, I'd love to see this. Okay. On the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a button that says present.
I'm way ahead of you. Let's do this.
Good man.
Is it showing for you right now?
I'm going to pull it up onto the stage now.
Great.
All right. Walk us through it, please.
Yeah, this is the platform that primarily people interact with our tools right here. And this is an ability to really stay off the load boards, ideally. So if you did need to find carriers operating between a certain origin destination that had a certain equipment types, you could look at their fleet size or authority age. You could put that all in, and we're going to tell you who have we seen running those lanes frequently and recently. So therefore, we're trying to avoid a situation where someone was in business and then went out of business. In fact, let me show you an example of exactly that case, which just happened this week, where we had a customer come to us and saying, hey, we just had this load stolen. Can you help? And we said, well, tell us what happened. They said, well, we booked a flatbed load of copper with Jarva Freight here. And we said, okay, well, let's go ahead and look in our data. Now you can see we have a default to the 3-year view here in our where they've been over the last 3 years. But if we go back to where they've been in the last 90 days, they literally disappear from the maps. In 30 days, 7 days, they are just not out there at all. And this is a carrier that only had one truck to begin with, that used to operate a little bit in that Illinois, Indiana area, but now they've disappeared. So I can even verify that with one click going into our asset locator tool to pull up, hey, who is this carrier? In this case, we see Jarva Freight had a box truck for the most part that was out there operating locally in that Illinois and Indiana area. But the last time we ever saw them was February 4th. Now, if that broker had access to our tools, they would have, and they had to post on the load board, they would have seen, hey, Jarva Freight doesn't actually have flatbeds. Jarva Freight's not actually been operational for the last 90 days. That's a problem. And we would have helped them avoid actually brokering that load. Let me show you another really fascinating example. You talked about the lack of inspections. Well, we have over 17,000 DOTs in our data that have never had an inspection that we view regularly out on the roads. Now, before I click into this Talk Bros Inc. right here, it's just a fascinating example to me. I'm going to pull up what every other vetting tool has right now. And if people are looking and they want to look this up, they could look at DOT 3659244. This would be the map over the last year for that carrier because they've only had one inspection in Oklahoma. Now, if you look in our data and we click into what it looks like Talk Bros Inc. out on the roads, we've actually seen them a ton more in a bunch of different states, running from California all the way up to New York and back. In fact, in a few-week period, we saw one of those power units operating did 6 transcontinental trips. And we see it in our data. If I pull them up, we're seeing them in St. Clair, Missouri. We're seeing them in Spice Township, Indiana. We're seeing them all the way to Pennsylvania and then Oklahoma and Arizona. And this is them going along those roads. That's just in the last few days alone that we've seen all of that. And yet, if you look at what FMCSA is going to present, it's that one inspection. And like I said, we have 17,000 other carriers that have never had an inspection. And I think what is so cool is we hear stories from carriers that say, I was unable to get loads tendered to me until brokers started using GenLogs. And then all of a sudden they were bypassing that necessity for an inspection. And they were providing freight to those carriers because they could look in here and clear as day. They could see it in the maps. They could see it in the images. They knew that they were real. And now they had that peace of mind to tender the loads there. And that's exactly what we want to happen. If you are real, you are out there, you are running the load, you're running the right lanes with the right equipment on the freight that you're bidding on, you should get those loads. And if you are not real, you are not out there actually running those lanes every day, then you should not get those loads. Just like whoever was trying to impersonate Jarva Freight these days, they clearly bought that MC or they're posing or they hacked it or whatever. Jarva does not exist out there. And now we're helping to avoid when that scammer tries to get access to your freight. So that was just a really quick overview of how the tool looks, feels, and how it's used.
Okay, can I chime in and just for fun, are you able to pull up my MC? I just want to know what kind of stuff is in there. I'm super interested in this now.
Let's do this. So go ahead if you want to throw it out to us.
1273717.
1273717. Go ahead and run it. Again, we're running it against 4 million DOTs out there. The Heartland Freight Group. So I just go ahead and click on that. And then we're actually able to see where we have some, Texas up into Illinois, a little bit in Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Minnesota. That's what we've seen over the last 3 years. If we look back kind of like last 90 days, primarily down in that Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana area with one power unit out there on the roads. And if I pull it up, it looks like we are seeing, let's make sure we got the right, I want to make sure we got the right DOT on that. That might've been a misfire there. So let me just,
no, those are my trucks.
That's it. Okay. So you're running hot shots out there.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Well, there we go. So we're seeing hot shots running on the roads. And that's over the last, this is where in Devine, Texas, Waco, Texas, kind of seeing out there. And yeah, each time we see that, observe it, we're dropping a pin, just kind of like, hey, they were there. Now, as you'll know, Caitlin, I have no idea where you went to afterwards here. So we're really trying to shed that balance between like, hey, we want people to know you're real. We want them to be able to be like, hey, they have this equipment. Let's book with them without exposing too much where now you feel like, well, hold on. They're following me all the way to my customer sites or to pickup sites. That's not what we are doing there. So that's going to be what it kind of looks like, the limits. But is that kind of representative of where you've been operating over the last, let's say 30, 90 days?
Yeah, we have we've got 3 trucks. It's probably just not updated to say 3 yet. We just updated that, but 2 of them run only in Texas. They do dedicated freight in Texas. So yeah, that's pretty accurate. The other one is OTR, but it's been up and down for repairs. So
yep,
that's
great. Well, yeah, I mean, I can see the 3 right there. We got the dark black Ford, we got the blue GMC, and then we got the white GMC. So we've seen them all, and that's on our roadmap, is to actually provide updates versus what has been reported on MCS 150 versus what we're actually observing on the roads. That actually is to your benefit in the sense of, hey, this is Heartland Freight Group. They are growing. We see more trucks being operated. They're operating every day. That's awesome. And what's really cool about this is if I look at some of these equipment that we were pulling in, we should be actually seeing the equipment types that we're observing and any like numbers and whatnot. And so we actually have a hotshot model that we're deploying soon. So Heartland would actually be tagged as a hotshot operator. We got a lot of brokers that say, hey, I'm looking for hotshot operators in the Texas area. You're actually going to pop in a search like that pretty high so that they can find and contact you. And that's ultimately what we want to happen, is that I'd rather them go directly to you than post on a load board and risk it. Because we actually asked, when you go to our website, go to GenLogs and you go on the upper right to book a demo. If you're in the transportation logistics industry, we actually ask you, hey, how many loads had you stolen in this past year? And how many loads did you move overall? It started to get as bad that we had 1 out of every 66 loads were being double brokered or stolen. That's crazy to me. That is 1 out of every 66 times. That's not going into Caitlin's hands or other reputable carriers out there. And that's what we want to see happen. So yeah, that's just a little bit more in terms of what's going on at GenLogs.
That is super interesting. This might be one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, I have to agree that everything that your platform represents is something that I think that is basically a bar of gold that brokers have been looking for. They have been looking for ways to try to verify that a carrier exists, that a carrier can function, etc. And your platform does that. Now, I can only imagine, and it's okay if you say no, how much did it cost for you to sit there and put cameras all over the country? Can you put a ballpark number on that? I'm curious.
I can put a ballpark of millions and millions, which is what, there was a huge investment up front, but we just knew that it was worth it. And as we onboard new customers every week and they see this for the first time, and they now see the ability to find carriers directly without having to post on load boards, we're seeing the behavior start to skew that way. And a lot of our customers come to us and say, hey, we have internal key performance indicators, or we basically have our own goals to get off of load boards by the end of 2025, 2026. So they're trying to build their carrier roster and great relationships with carriers in order to do that. It was really difficult before. Now it's getting a whole lot easier with GenLogs. So in the end, we believe that millions and millions of dollars will be worth it. Justin can get in a little bit in terms of, hey, yes, we're fighting fraud, but 99%, 0.99, let's even say, of carriers on the road are just doing God's work, and we love them. And then there's those small bit that are causing problems for others, that either insurance premiums are going up and having to be spread around for others, or they're just, an article runs about, hey, narcotics trafficking and this and that done via truck. And it just kind of, it doesn't give the industry the name that industry should have, keeping America moving. And every day, Justin and our team led by David is working directly with law enforcement to make sure that we can support those that are doing great and take those that are not doing great by the industry off the road so that the good guys can flourish.
I'm just absolutely floored. Seriously, I'm at a loss for words as the capabilities and the possibilities that exist with this. And as you guys already know, I'm with the Freight Fraud Task Force. And I know that Dale and Jeff have been talking to you guys about participating with us. And I can't wait to have you guys on board helping us out, because I can't think of a better tool to help deal with fraud. I mean, I remember back when they first started talking about, oh, you got to have an inspection. You guys fix that. I've been calling for an end to that for 2 years, and you guys can fix that like that. And all we got to do is we got to make sure that brokers know, one, that you exist. Because I've been talking up this particular episode for the last week, and every broker that I speak to, I mention it and mention that you're going to be on the show. And I would say 50% of the time they say, who's that? And I was like, oh, dude, just watch the dang show. Watch the show. You're going to be really interested in these guys. Cost. I know a lot of people have got to be asking the question about cost. What does it cost to actually get that kind of access out of your platform?
Yeah, that varies, John, based on the customer size, how many people they have that are going to be using the platform, a little bit on how many loads they move per year. We talked about how much it cost us to put this network out, but there's also a cost every time someone hits the search button. We're incurring costs with regards to AWS bills, all of the other things. We just need to make sure, if you got a million people on our platform, it's going to be a little bit more. But if you're a 2-person brokerage, man, we can make sure that we can get it to the cost that makes sense for you. I think ultimately we want it to be at the point where you can't afford not to, in terms of, hey, if you've ever had one issue with regards to double brokering, theft, or all the above, you can't afford not to. And I think that Jarva freight example is a great point. That load of copper was $150,000. And now that customer is swallowing it. They would have paid much less for our platform, given the size of a customer they have. And they had the opportunity. They just decided not to use the platform. And now I'm sure they're going to be coming back saying, all right, we can't afford to have another $150,000 load stolen. So let's make sure we are leveraging GenLogs in every evaluation of new carriers, and let's use it to find new carriers. So I would say, we have reasonable prices for what you are able to get out of it. We haven't even talked about it. If we do have brokers, and I would even say for Kate and other carriers on the call, we have a whole side of our tool, which is the shipper intelligence insight. So we have 250,000 shipper locations on our platform. And if you click on one of the locations, you see all of their freight lanes and needs. So you could look at what is every outbound lane from that shipper. And that allows you to search by OD pairing. So if you're looking for backhauls from Wichita down to Dallas or wherever you are, you can search in our platform, hey, who ships, who has volume from Wichita down to Dallas? Great. I'm going to call them and I'm going to win their business, because now we're giving you a leg up. You already know that they have freight there. You are able to carry that freight, potentially backhaul at a cost that makes sense for both parties. And now that whatever you're paying for GenLogs, man, we want to see ROI happen fully, that return on investment for an entire year. We want to see that happen in the first month alone. That's when we've knocked it out of the park. And for many customers, they found that.
Wow. I just can't imagine. I'm going through my head here and the possibilities. One, it's going to make me as a dispatcher obsolete, which, I'm perfectly fine with. I'm hoping it can put a dent in freight fraud, and I'd love to be taken out of business in the freight fraud world. I just don't quite see that happening just yet. But wow, that's all I can say is just wow. Do you allow carriers access?
We sure do. We have customers of all sizes on the platform, especially if you're a large asset-based carrier. It's a no-brainer because almost everyone with assets has missing assets, and we're able to help you track it down. But if you're a smaller carrier and you're just looking for, hey, I need a better way to reach out to the right shippers that are in certain areas and source freight. In fact, why don't I just show for about a second here what that looks like in our platform, so that you can see that ability to say, hey, on the shipper side, you could either start with a name and say, hey, I want to find all Pepsi. I'm going to pick on them today. All Pepsi around the United States. We could show it all to you, and you could click on any one of those locations and then actually get what their outbound freight looks like down by volume too, to certain markets. But that allows you therefore to say, hey, I need to find shippers that have volume, let's say from Wichita down to Dallas, as I said, or maybe we'll tell you what, let me just go from Dallas up to Chicago. And I'm going to show you this for a reason is if I'm looking at Dallas up to Chicago, who are all of the shippers that have volume there? We're going to go through that 250,000 shippers and look at all of their volumes and then rank this according to some of the top volumes up there. So Kroger, if you're running any reefer loads and you have reefer backhaul needs up to Chicago, they have a pretty sizable lane that goes up there. A lot that goes down to Houston. You can visualize that. But if I click on the Chicago one, I say, all right, now I want to source carriers that are actually running from, in this case, Keller, Texas, up to La Porte, Indiana, which is where that location was. Well, it was just, I found shippers that ran that lane. One click later, I'm now looking at carriers that can run that lane. And so while we do sell to anyone on the, you could be a shipper, you can be a carrier, those that are kind of the intermediaries to now say, hey, show me who's actually running the lanes like from Dallas up to Chicago. Well, I have 3,259 carriers that we found, and 996 of them are based in the Illinois area. And so you see Venera Transportation, man, that, like, if I look at where they've been in the last 7 days, they've been operating just to and from Dallas to Chicago, back and forth. All of those pink dots is where we've seen them in the last few hours. And if you're trying to look for someone to take a spot load right now, you can actually click over to say, I want to see those carriers that are within 2 hours of Keller, Texas right now. So we're saying not that they historically run that lane. Show me carriers that are within that lane right now. In this case, I'm looking for dry vans. And we are going to go ahead and pull back Vela Transport. And if I click on them, that real-time location tab, it should pop up with the actual image where we had and the time and place where they're actually headed into that Dallas market. This was a few minutes ago, Mount Vernon, Texas, 30 westbound, headed into the Dallas market. And they likely need to get back up to that Wisconsin area because we see them running along those lanes. And so now you got a dry van load that you need to get from the Dallas up to that Wisconsin, Chicago area. You give Vela Transport a call right now. There they are. Call Dino. There's the number. And then now you can book that load directly without having to post on the load boards. So that's the power that we put in your hands. And yes, it is available no matter your size. Please reach out. And we'll do a deeper demo with you. We'll actually go into some of the lanes you need, and we'll even send you a list of shippers afterwards. You don't need to sign up for the platform. We're going to do that for you just to show you the value that you could get.
Wow. We need to make sure that we get your information in the comment section so that we can post that out for everybody. Actually, I've got your stuff sitting here on the cards here. If anyone does need to reach out to the Joyce brothers, you can get Ryan. Got his website, or not website, his email on the screen, as well as Justin's. Please be sure to shoot an email to them and reach out. And I'm sure they will be more than happy to help you in trying to sort this out. I know I'm really excited, and I'm probably going to start thinking about what I need to do to help support my carriers that I dispatch for at this point.
Oh, we lost John.
We lost John.
Darn. I'm going to request a demo.
Well, we're going to show you a demo, Kate. Yeah. And Kate, let me also say for anyone that's listening, if you have an asset missing, whether that's a trailer, could be a truck, could be anything along the way, on our website, we have a, hey, find lost assets button. You can report your asset there. The GenLogs investigation team will work to find it, and then we'll work with Justin's team to try to get it back to you through law enforcement. And we're going to put that back in your hands, and we're not going to charge you a thing. So we do that as a free service to the entire industry. And we just wanted to make sure that that's clear, that everyone who's listening knows that, hey, we want to help and we're willing to do that free of charge. And I saw John come back for a second. Looks like we lost him again, Kate, but there we go. Hopefully he stays back here.
I'm trying. Can you all hear me?
We can at least hear you, John.
I think my camera just did something, so I'll have to deal with that later. The fun of being live. Okay, so yeah, I apologize about that. Yeah, I know Kate definitely wants to get in on that, and I'm going to be talking to my carriers about this, even though it's probably going to take me out of a job, but that's okay. One of the things that I do need to point out to dispatchers, if you are a dispatch service, remember you are not permitted to go and speak to direct shippers per FMCSA regulations. You still have to work with brokers. So keep that in mind. With that being said, guys, does your platform identify what brokers tend to work with those shippers in any way?
We do not. We're kind of confined to, hey, what can we observe on the roads or in third-party data sets that we can blend with what our cameras are seeing. So we're going to be able to look at, hey, what are the general lanes of shippers and what are the carriers that operate on those lanes? But we are not going to be able to say that, hey, that C.H. Robinson is servicing this shipper today and that TQL had it last year. There's a little bit on the limitations in terms of what we do there. Looks like we lost John again. Hopefully he gets back.
Lord.
Yeah, Kate, we can keep ourselves busy here. So, well, I want to, if I can, I'd love to just turn it over to Justin a little bit to talk through what some of the relationships look like with law enforcement. And Justin, particularly because I think there's a misperception that law enforcement doesn't care or they don't want to help when it comes to lost or stolen freight. I know that you're working on some big cases now, like breaking apart multi-DOT or MC fraudulent carrier networks. What can you share about that? And just to maybe shine some light on what law enforcement actually cares about and is trying to do.
Yeah, no, and you raise a good distinction there. Law enforcement, men and women, they're working hard to resolve these cases. And I think what we find more than not, I think a lot of the legacy tools that they've been using for decades just is not providing the fidelity needed to provide some clarity and ultimately some resolution to, or conclusion rather, to a lot of these cargo theft or fraud cases. Now, unfortunately, my team, the public sector team, working alongside my colleague Dave Barber as our director, we often get involved when things have gone wrong in a carrier movement. So when folks haven't been able to use the right tools and ensure that they're not defrauded, should that cargo go missing or not be able to find other aspect of that shipment, that's where we get involved from that third part of that targeting methodology that Ryan mentioned, that find, fix, and finish. Hey, John, we got you back.
Sorry.
And I think it's unique how how GenLogs is postured. We've got the finding under our belt, as Ryan just walked you through those tools, be able to shrink that haystack and understand carrier movements and where specific trucks and trailer pairings are operating on the roads. And then we've got that fixing aspect. This is where our investigations team is able to astutely use our tools and really, again, sort through all the noise of what's happening on the road and help focus us in on those unique US DOTs or those unique trucks and trailers associated with a fraud ring. And then that finish is where myself and the public sector team get involved. We're developed partnerships across federal, state, and local entities, from Virginia to California, from Texas up through the Midwest. We've got a number of law enforcement partnerships working diligently to resolve a lot of these cargo and fraud issues. They just haven't had the tools for a long time to be able to do so. I think one of the most rewarding things when we provide them a demo of our tools, when you see folks start to stand up an inch closer to the screen, amazed at the level of data we're able to provide. It's not only exciting to see our tools are of value, but it confirms that, hey, we are helping the good men and women of uniform in getting the bad guys off the road and helping the good guys to flourish. I'll provide you a real brief recent example of how we provided some insights to a Southern California cargo theft ring. I'm sure your listeners are well familiar with the challenge that it is in Southern California, and even in the last year, the rising number of brazen cargo theft that we've seen. Very sophisticated, using cyber capabilities to steal loads and other reasons. We had a commercial carrier reach out to our investigations team to say, hey, this cargo's gone missing. This is the information we understand about the carrier and the truck that was there at the pickup. Using one of our tools called Asset Locator, we were able to identify some near real-time images of where this particular entity had been operating on the road with the stolen cargo on board. Able to provide that information to law enforcement. Fast forward a couple of weeks later, and we had a very similar scenario with a different commercial brokerage that reached out to say, hey, we have another issue of some cargo that has gone missing. Well, our investigations team were able to quickly take a stand back and start to compare some of the data points and realize this is the same carrier network that's at play. So based off of some savvy capabilities of being able to leverage our tools, they were able to build out that network, build a good pattern of life understanding of the different trucks and trailers that were all implicated in this network. And so the next time that we saw an additional time where this cargo theft ring, lifted their head, and often, unfortunately, they're perhaps masquerading and stealing the identity of very legitimate companies where the smaller carrier networks are being pulled into the scourge that is fraud and cargo theft. And so we're trying to get in the middle of that, separate what's legitimate activity from what is that false activity or that fraudulent activity. Well, we were then able to bring all that information and package it up on the public sector side, develop some relationships in Southern California, provide our insights over to them. And now we're helping them leverage their own law enforcement tools and their capabilities to start building that package to be able to move towards that prosecution and ultimately removing that fraudulent network off the roads. So this is kind of that cycle that we see, not only using our tools on the front end to vet those you're dealing with from a shipping and carrier standpoint, but also that back end. Should something go missing, should there be a theft, us working directly with law enforcement to ultimately remove them and help the good guys to flourish on the roads.
Thanks for sharing that, Justin, and welcome back, John.
I think John's speechless.
It's been, I'm not sure what the hell is going on, to be perfectly honest. Suddenly my camera disconnected and my microphone disconnected, and I was trying to get everything put back together. The fun of doing live work. Oh, yeah. Anyway, you can see I've got my fade not working right on my green screen. And man, it's going to take another 15 minutes just to calibrate it. To hell with it. That's one of the things about live. Okay. So again, you guys have an impressive program. I can't stress that enough. And like I said, I've been talking to brokers about you guys for the last week and the kinds of things that you do. And whenever we have a cargo theft case come up, either through our double broker bounty hunter program or through the task force, we automatically direct them to you guys, because you guys, in the heat of the moment, when a cargo is on the move, are the best shot anyone has at trying to find that cargo. Listening to Justin's stories about how they've been working in California, it takes me back to the webinar that Danielle did with CHP a few weeks ago. That one I did watch, Danielle. And again, seeing how all this connects is just one of the great things about what's happening when it comes to fighting fraud in this industry right now. Now, integrations. I speak to a lot of small platforms that are finding integrations with the larger screening services like My Carrier Portal, RMIS, Highway, etc. Are you guys trying to create such integrations as well?
We absolutely are. It doesn't make sense to me to have stovepipes. That's exactly what caused the issues to begin with, is that data was siloed. And so we want to make sure we can break those silos so that data can be shared with other tools. So we're working on those agreements with the tools, and we're doing whatever we can to make sure that GenLogs data really fits into your workflow, and ideally done in a way that you don't have to look at our screens to see those maps of a carrier out there, that we can simply give you that warm and fuzzy green light that, hey, yep, this seems to be a reputable carrier out there on the roads, operating in the right lanes, right equipment. Feel good to move forward in confidence working with them. So we've had chats with My Carrier Portal about that, with RMIS and with others, verified carrier, about making sure that data is available so that we can fight this common fight.
I first saw you guys over at Matt's. I know you guys have been in the game for a little bit of time now. How long? When did you guys first get started, and when did you start moving cameras all over the country? Because it seems like you guys came up really fast on the radar.
Well, we operate pretty fast, and our first camera actually went out about 2 years ago. Last month is when the very first one went on the side of I-95 near Richmond, Virginia, and we started collecting data. That was really when it was experimental. Hey, could we do this? Because we knew we couldn't get the data that we needed from Department of Transportation traffic cams. So it was, could we put our own cameras out there? Could we collect on the front, side, and rear? Could we stitch all three of those images together? Could we use AI to extract it all? That was the early experimentation days. It took another 5 months for us to raise enough of a seed round from investors to be able to now invest in this network to put it out there. So we just demonstrated to you is about a year in the making, and that's it. So if you think about how much we've been able to do in a year, and you fast forward to where we will be next year and the year after that, I'll give you one crazy statistic that three weeks ago is when we announced that we had just hit 1 billion images of trucks that we had collected. As of this morning, we're 12% of the way there to 2 billion. And so that's starting to just almost double much quicker as more and more sensors go out. And we're putting these sensors out now at a clip of one every 24 hours. New one up, new trucks being collected. New one up, new truck. And it's just over and over and over with a really talented sensor deployment team supported by 3 different field technician crews with bucket trucks that crisscross the road right next to all of those truck drivers that we're trying to help make sure that they get the right freight, and that we defer the bad freight defer freight away from the bad actors. They're out there in the roads with you too, and they're going out to put these up there to make sure that we can continue to defend against fraud and theft.
Do you have any dead zones that are around? I mean, perhaps that's the wrong question. Are there any areas of the country where you have not completed enough deployment that you don't have an area that you can cover yet?
There's some areas that, given the nature of how dense they are or how much fraud and theft is happening, we want to put more sensors there. I think Southern California is a great example. I mean, man, you look at just Inland Empire to begin with. We'd love to be on every single road in and out of there. That's going to take us a little while. We're definitely on some of the main roads around there. So we're going to flood into more of these urban areas that are having these issues, Chicago, down into Texas, Florida. I think Texas is one of our really bright stories there. Thanks to our working hand in hand with the authorities there, we were able to really scale rapidly our sensor network there. And now it's really impossible to get in or out of Dallas without going by one of our sensors. And so we can, if you're a broker and you're working with a carrier that claims like, oh, I operate in Dallas all the time, and you're not seeing them in our data, like there is absolutely an issue there. And I would think twice before you just kind of blindly issue that freight. I would want to dig in further to that story. But our team, we're halfway there to what our 2025 goal was. So we're about halfway into the year, and so they're going to be doubling the number of sensors we have by the end of this year. We believe that maybe next year we could double again. At that point, we start hitting the point of diminishing returns, where we're collecting so much data on carriers in the road that we should be seeing every truck on the roads 2 or more times in our data by the end of this year, early next year. And that's really where we want to be, so that we have a really good handle of what's happening.
Yeah, I had some people sit there and theorize that you guys might be having issues in the Rockies. I've got a carrier that's based out of Salt Lake City. I'm sure Salt Lake City probably got decent coverage, but there's always been traditional signal blank areas all around the Rockies. Are you running into issues with getting signal for your cameras or anything, or is that something you guys is a proprietary thing you guys have sorted out?
No, it's definitely a consideration. I think that's from a competition perspective. That's why we sleep a little bit better at night, as we know how difficult it is to get these cameras out there, and that we will look at 500 miles of interstate or highway, and we will look at what sites actually qualify for our collection, which has to be in a certain proximity to the roadway, clear lines of sight, power, some structure to hang on. And then like you said, the telecommunications network to be able to get those images out in real time without getting stacked up. That is problematic in certain remote areas. Now, we don't have to be every mile. If I saw you at the beginning of kind of a long interstate stretch of where I know you're going to be on one side and come out the other side, then I can kind of sit there in 2 areas where we do have good telecommunications coverage and the ability to get the data out. And then kind of what we say, infer or impute that, hey, you were here and then you went there and there's only one road you could have gone on. Trucks can't fly yet. So we're leaning into that. But yeah, I would say our sensor deployment team is never satisfied and always hungry. And they continue to look at how do we continue to fill in all of these little gaps to make sure that we truly have full understanding of commercial motor vehicles on the roads out there.
Yeah, I think you have a winning formula, though, putting additional sensors in more urban areas in Southern California, Texas, even around the Miami area, because they seem to be the heaviest locations for cargo theft. And I can't forget Chicago. I know my fellow fraud fighters would say, Chicago, Chicago, Chicago. But I mean, I can't even begin to fathom how you go from being CIA or Army intel and then go into dealing with this for logistics. I don't see how that connection ever got made. Can you clarify that for me?
The connection was really that I think if there weren't bad actors in the logistics industry, we might not have gone into here. So it was really that fraud, the theft issue. Man, they tug at just into my heartstrings of just, if there are bad guys out there doing things, we want to intervene and set the record straight. That's what we did after 9/11. That's what we decided, hey, we're going to do here now. So I think it's because it's a really highly fragmented industry. You have a lot of data stovepipes. You have a lot of misinformation or lack of information. So it's exactly what we experienced doing counterterrorism operations. And there was a period in the late mid 2010s and such that Justin was in Afghanistan and I was supporting Afghanistan operations. And we were both looking at a country like Afghanistan, trying to make heads or tails of, hey, who's the Taliban and who's not? And if you look at similarly in the industry, you say, well, there's a ton of trucks on the roads. Who are the bad guys and who are the good guys? The last thing we want is to penalize great actors there on the road. And it always breaks my heart when I hear, like Justin mentioned earlier, when a bad actor slaps a placard of a legitimate carrier out there on the roads and goes and steals something, and that carrier is now reported, and there's a freight guard report in, and all of a sudden brokers are avoiding them because there's not clarity about, hey, is this carrier good or bad? We want to set the record straight and exonerate those carriers by saying, hey, we saw someone else there whose VIN is not part of your MC, was using your MC, And we want to flag that ahead of time before a theft happens to say, hey, authorities, someone else is posing as the Heartland Freight Group when they are not the Heartland Freight Group. And so let's prevent that those ill reports or the freight guards from going in on good carriers.
So does GenLogs have the ability for say brokers to leave comments on carriers? Is that part of it, or is it purely like location-based information? Like, is it something that could take the place of things like Carrier 411 having that ability and then some?
That is near term on our roadmap, is to now add the ability for people to provide feedback. So if the Heartland Freight Group is out there and they're on time in full deliveries, they're doing a great job, we want to make sure that those positive feedback actually pushes them up our recommendation stacks. And if we have others in there that, hey, they're just not, they weren't there, they were tying the stuff up, they were maybe fraudulently acting, that data can actually come back to us, and we can push them down in our rankings in order to make sure that the good guys continue to flourish.
Cool. Okay. That's awesome. Good to hear.
I've been working a little bit with a group called OnSight, SIGHT. Don't know if you've heard of those guys. They want to try to do something fairly similar, but that it's exclusively at the shippers, and it's to identify carriers when they show up, to what carrier showed up, facial recognition, stuff like that. And I think the pairing between the information that you have while it's in motion, the information they're going to be generating at the site of pickup, there's no silver bullet that stops fraud. That's about as close as I think you can come. The possibilities here are absolutely limitless. Gentlemen, do you have any final plugs that you'd like to make before we start wrapping this up?
Justin, let me defer to you.
No, this has been a pleasure to be able to interact with you and your audience here. I'll just say this has been an opportunity of a lifetime on my side, not only work with my brother, but to use a lot of the experiences that I was able to learn through the military for about 14 years, both in and out of uniform, tracking down and supporting counterterrorism operations. To be able to do that pivot now as I've kind of moved into a second career in life, and be able to leverage those capabilities to what Ryan just said, to do good, to work alongside the men and women in law enforcement, and to really set straight what decades has been an issue with fraud and cargo theft. In addition to those things, we've also had successes in supporting law enforcement with things like fatal hit and run homicides, and helping bust narcotics rings all across the Midwest. Every day, I just very blessed to be able to interact with the hardworking men and women, and in many ways ensuring that we are first and foremost leveraging our tools in a way that's responsible. We have privacy baked into the foundation of our company. We have protocols in place to ensure that we're filtering out those privately owned vehicles and operating on the roads. We're solely focused on CMVs involved in illicit activities, and we want to be in a position to support law enforcement to again get the bad guys off the road and help the good guys to flourish.
Absolutely. And I'll just close by saying it's been a pleasure to join you, John and Kate, today. For those that are interested in learning more, you can go to the website. It's genlogs.io, GenLogs.io. Upper right hand, we have two buttons. If you're missing any assets, you can click that Find Lost Assets button, fill out the details. We're going to help track it down, get back in your hands. We're not going to charge you a dime. If you are interested in learning more about our platform, you can click Book a Demo, and then just go ahead and run through the steps there. And then lastly, if you listen to this and you're on the law enforcement side and you want to partner with us to actually help with that finishing option, we do have a tab there for law enforcement. You can also go ahead and fill out your details. Justin will literally reach back out to you directly and make sure that we can get this platform in your hands in a way that we can start to combat the fraud and theft in this industry. We want to raise the bar for every carrier out there. We truly want this to be a place where only loads are going to good carriers. that are going to do right by those loads and do right by their customers. And that's GenLogs' mission. That's why we're going to continue to expand and push.
Well, I got to tell you guys, I absolutely love your mission. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Keep it up. I'm going to be watching you guys with glee, because I think you guys have the closest thing to a silver bullet there is out there to stop some of this cargo theft that's going on. And anyone who's involved in law enforcement, brokers, even track and trace guys, you want to know about GenLogs. These guys are going to make your life a lot easier in the future. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Do need to go through and show our sponsors a little bit of love here. If you're new in the industry or if you are a veteran, the best way to survive is to know your costs, and the best way to know your costs is through AccuBid Pro.
Tired of spending hours bidding on loads and second-guessing your profits? Introducing AccuBid Pro, the mobile app designed for the everyday owner-operator. We simplify load bidding, making it fast, accurate, and stress-free. Know your operating costs up front to ensure every load is profitable. Plus, for a limited time, enjoy a 30-day free trial. Stop guessing and start earning. Download AccuBid Pro today, available now in the App Store. Bid better with AccuBid Pro.
And if you ever want to have a reliable source of information, no BS, all factual information, Freight Validate is for you. Whether you're a carrier or a broker, Freight Validate is one surefire way to make sure that you're working with people who actually meet federal and state requirements for maintaining their authority. Make sure you go to freightvalidate.com, or better yet, go to my website, vigilanttransport.com, click on the link, and you'll be eligible for a 10-day free access as a corporate entity. Kate, you got any questions you want to fire off before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. I love this whole thing. I'm so down with this. I'm checking it out. I already submitted a demo, so.
You know, Kate and I have been doing this now for a little over a year and a half together, and she's very shy. She does not talk very much at all. I think she has talked more during this episode than she has in any other. So thank you guys. I appreciate you helping to drag her out of her shell. God knows I've been trying, but that's okay. I love her anyway. If you are, what was that, Kate?
I said, I love you too, bud.
If you're looking for the latest news, be sure to check out truckingnewshub.com, one of our fellow friends here on the Lounge Media Group. Stop the Scam is always live Mondays, 1 p.m. Central Time on all the Lounge Media Group social media outlets. Check us out. You can also email us, email Kate at kprice@stopthescampodcast.com, or you can get a hold of me, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, at jcantera@stopthescampodcast.com. Please make sure that you follow the Freight Fraud Task Force. We've got big things coming up, and I think GenLogs is going to be a part of that as things go on. Guys, it's now the second week of June. We're in the summer months. Watch yourselves out there, especially if you're in a residential area. Your kids are running around. They're not in school anymore. Stay safe. And whatever you do, don't let scammers take you for a ride. We'll see you all next week. Thank you, guys.